Hello, welcome to Kernels of Truth, brought to you by Progress Kentucky. This week we've got a great show for you. We've got a few important breaking political stories we're going to cover, looking at issues like gun safety and abortion. And then we're going to chat with Kim Reeder, who is the Democratic candidate running for Kentucky Auditor. We're going to find out what the Kentucky Auditor is exactly, what it does for our state, and check in on how her statewide campaign is shaping up. And also how folks can help her effort. So before we get into that, though, we want to make sure you're ready. Are you ready? You here, dear viewer, listener, whomever? Are you ready to help turn Kentucky purple? We know that our state is deeply red with a GOP supermajority that seems to be committed to making trans kids' lives harder, making all abortions illegal, cutting taxes for the rich and cutting services for the poor. And if that's not your vision of Kentucky, if you want a commonwealth that works for all of us, join Progress Kentucky, support our campaign to turn our commonwealth purple, make a donation to our secure Act Blue website, and spread the word that we're tired of the GOP ignoring the needs of regular folks in Kentucky. And we think our commonwealth is worth fighting for. So that's what we're doing. I hope you'll get on board and join us. Things are heating up. We have, 6 months until this big, huge, important landmark election that will determine kind of the direction our commonwealth is headed. We've got grand plans to get engaged. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that at our call to action and ask for your support. So, but before we do that, I want to check in with our co-hosts. So let us know who you are, where you are, and what does your protest sign say today? You there on the internet, watching, listening, we mean you as well. You can tell us what your sign says, put in the chat while we're sharing ours. I'm Aaron. I'm coming to you from Childsburg in Lexington. My sign today says Dan Cameron is a liar. All right, Doug, what do you got? Doug, you there?
Yep, I'm here. I had to unmute. I'm Doug Price from Harrison County. I'm wearing a throwback T-shirt from the times when we were the Mitch McConnell Retirement Committee. When divisible.
Yes, as an indivisible affiliate, we got the cool merch of Win Divisible. Yes, nice one. All right, and anything you gonna plug? Anything in the county for us today?
Well, I will plug this. I did not go to Cynthiana Harrison County Chamber of Commerce meeting yesterday because we were going to hear from my senator, my representative, and I decided that I didn't want to get thrown out, so I just stayed home.
Best to avoid the temptation of saying not very nice things about them.
And let me mention this. Annabelle just reminded me the Harrison County Dems have a big picnic coming up. That's happening on June the 22nd, I believe.
All right, coming up, coming quick. All right, and for our third co-host, throwback. Hey, Nate, you there?
Hey, friends, it's Nate Orshan. Yes, coming live and direct from Kitson, my lovely home here in South Frankfort. We've got Addie, the super pup, behind me. Say hi, Addie. And it's nice to be back. It's nice to see, old familiar friends and talk about things that really matter for the Commonwealth. And yes, I do have a special protest sign for y'all this week. You have to imagine it, but it would say, "The General Assembly is a supermajority of cowards, and we won't forget." Back to you, Aaron.
Nice, thank you. Awesome. Well, so let's dig into it. We've got news of the week, week WEAK, because man, for these stories, that's I think what we've got. A lot of weakness. All right, Doug, what do you got for us?
Yes, I want to start out with mass shootings. Hey, we got a streak going. We haven't had a mass shooting in Kentucky for over 39 days. So far this year, Kentucky has had 5 mass shootings, resulting in 9 deaths and 24 injured. That compares to last year's totals of 10 mass shootings with 7 deaths and 51 injured. So what do the legislators do? During the 2023 legislative session, lawmakers passed HB 153, which is described as an act relating to prohibiting the enforcement of a federal ban or regulation of firearms and declaring an emergency. Essentially, this was a preemptive strike by our Republican-controlled legislature to try to stop any federal gun regulations. I checked voting records, and you can imagine that the vote was R's against D's, and you would be right with a few exceptions. Senator Julie Rocky Adams passed on the original vote and then issued a vote modification changing that to a no. I think that she would not go against her party with a public no vote, but wanted the record to reflect her no vote. Plus, it is notable that 4 Republican representatives abstained from voting on the bill. Governor Beshear allowed the bill to become law without his signature. Prior to this, there was a concerted effort for all Kentucky counties to become a Second Amendment sanctuary. Basically an effort to say, we want our guns and ain't nobody gonna take our guns. Currently, 112 out of 120 counties' fiscal courts have sponsored or voted to become a 2A sanctuary county. This is a feel-good action that started in 2020 and swept the United States. I've calculated that the 8 counties that are not 2A sanctuaries constitute almost 33% of Kentucky's population. Now for some bright news on the horizon. On May 9th, 16 Democrat representatives and senators released a statement on policy changes they want to see related to guns in Kentucky. Extreme risk protection orders, sometimes called red flag laws, that could be temporarily restrict a person's access to firearms if they are at immediate risk of harming others or themselves. They suggested to establish a statewide office for safer communities that would receive funding to gather data on gun violence and make it widely available. They want to be able to let cities and counties regulate firearm and ammunition possession, transfer, and transportation. They want to require background checks with every private firearm purchase to allow people who are suicidal to voluntarily place their name on a do not sell list while they feel in danger of ending their life. This policy would also allow people to easily remove their name from the list once the danger is past. Lastly, they want to require safe storage of firearms within the home. This would hold gun owners legally and possibly criminally responsible if they failed to secure their gun and their child took it and committed a crime with it. This one to me is just a slam dunk. If a person has a gun in their house and they allow a child to pick it up, take it to school, kill somebody, they should be held responsible. In the wake of the April 16th Old National Bank shooting, Governor Beshear called for a red flag law, which generally would allow law enforcement to ask a judge to temporarily remove guns from individuals deemed to be a risk to themselves and others. The governor has not reacted to the recent Democratic proposals, but one would think that these issues were discussed by leadership prior to the press release. Lastly, will this turn into a campaign issue? In my opinion, without a doubt. Back to you, Aaron.
Yeah, this is, it's important to see this kind of leadership, even if it's not, being picked up by the folks who can actually do anything in Frankfort, right? Which is the GOP. We can't, the Democrats, I think, are that's what the tool they have right now is a press release, right? They can file bills that get stuck in the committee on committees and never move. They on this issue, right? Like clearly on guns, there's just a very stark divide, and it's really disappointing that even in the wake of these horrific shootings, there's just seemingly no appetite for a serious conversation about what we need to do, and that's just it's a shame. And it's not going to change. That's not going to change until people politically feel some heat, and will it become a campaign issue for the statewide general election? I don't know. We'll see. I mean, I think there are a number of people who are going to work really hard to make it one. We'll see if Kentucky voters pay attention to that. but it's disappointing. But thanks for walking through those proposals and that important issue for sure. Nate, any thoughts on it?
Yeah, I just want to focus on the word sanctuary for a second. Making this sort of a Second Amendment sanctuary state and all that. Think about the term sanctuary. Okay, it used to be used for churches, like think of the Hunchback of Notre Dame, and then more recently it was used as a designation for certain cities who wanted to make undocumented people feel that they wouldn't just be hauled away automatically if they tried to live their lives otherwise as law-abiding residents. So the thing that those have in common is that a sanctuary applies to powerless people who could really use someone in their corner, people who are very vulnerable, right? And so to take that concept and put it on its head and say that you're going to coddle guns and the people who collect them, it's just obscene to me. It is a grotesque mockery of the word sanctuary, and it's just Orwellian speech at its finest. And the guns don't need protection. And you know what, folks? I'm going to go out on a limb and say that most people who have gazillions of firearms, they don't really need protection either. They just are scared.
They're scared. We need some protection from them. But
yeah,
it is. I saw a clip recently floating around the internet, which Ronald Reagan talking about how we don't need AK-47s or assault weapons. Amazing. Even the revered and almost just religious figure of the right was common sense on guns. And it seems like we just don't have much common sense in the conversation around guns, and not in the state of Kentucky, not in our Commonwealth, not with the current, political realities such as they are. But I think the public is largely with us. No one's coming for your guns, right? That's not on the table. What Doug just walked through, incredibly sensible. All those things are popular things. If you pull those items one by one, I guarantee you the majority of Kentucky voters go, yeah, we should do that. We should have that. But it's just become this hot button issue where it's just a reflexive response to anything that would, dare to, impede on these perceived God-given rights to, having as many lethal firearms at your disposal as at all times, So that's like one side of it. It's not the majority, but it's the political, prevalent view, which is just sad. So thanks for that again, Doug. The next story we got is another issue that is one that confounds, I think, folks from a progressive point of view frequently in this state. But Nate, what do you got for us?
Yeah, thanks, Aaron. And apologies in advance. This story has a few names that I may mangle. Hopefully I get it right, but just wanted to put that up front. So we learned about this story via an article by Kelsey Soudo at WKYT and another by Linda Blackford at the Lexington Herald Leader. So Heather Mayberry, a Powell County mom of 3, was pregnant with her next kid. And she had recently gone to get her second trimester ultrasound. The news she and her husband received was just about the worst. Their developing daughter had anencephaly, which is a type of developmental defect in which the fetus is missing part of the brain and skull. As you might guess, a baby born with anencephaly has an almost 100% chance of dying shortly after birth. Now, there was a time when Ms. Mayberry would have told you that she was against abortion, but not this time. As Linda Blackford wrote, quote, Mayberry could not bear the thought of carrying a dead baby to term. She has high blood pressure and is suffering anxiety attacks from her current stress. But Ms. Mayberry has the additional misfortune of being a resident of Kentucky, where getting an abortion is now illegal except to save the life of or prevent a serious health risk to a pregnant person. Neither of those situations applied to the parent who's facing this horrific and almost inevitably fatal birth defect like anencephaly. So Ms. Mayberry now has had to raise funds online just so she could go to the nearest place she could get an abortion, Chicago, According to Linda Blackford, Ms. Mayberry was able to complete the abortion procedure earlier this month, and she can now try to return to a life in which her state lawmakers won't show her and all the people in her position even an ounce of compassion. My heart goes out to Ms. Mayberry and her husband, and I want to take a moment to highlight her bravery in being willing to talk with journalists to share her story in our state where too many of our fellow Kentuckians would try to force her to deliver a dying baby. Her bravery stands in stark contrast to the abject cowardice of our GOP legislators who think that their sanctimonious religious convictions are more important than providing help for a pregnant person facing a decision she would never have considered in the past. I'll let Ms. Mayberry have the last word here, as told to Kelsey Soudo. Quote, "The lawmakers are not women. Most of them aren't. They will never have a baby growing inside them to be told that child is not going to live. They will never know what it feels like to have your baby kick and to be told that baby doesn't have a brain, that baby is not living, and then be told that you have to continue to carry a dead child. It's wrong." Back to you.
Yeah, this is, maybe not the right panel for us to kind of dig in on this issue, like cis white male panel of kernels of truth. But it is so. Just how do you read that and not go, oh yeah, we should fix that, right? Because they could fix this. Maybe the whatever the name of the nut job Kentucky right wing pro life group is, I'm sure would say bad things about them, but that's not majority of voters, right? I guess, are they so terrified of a primary where that type of perspective can kind of win the day that they're unwilling to fix this? Add some of these very sensible exceptions, and weren't we promised some exemptions into our trigger ban, right? Like, I thought that was part of the arguments that were being made when they were arguing over our laws, our harsh anti-choice laws. But the voters spoke, right? Didn't we just vote on this? Didn't we all come out and say Amendment 2? We should have a clear constitutional right to these healthcare options, and that's what won. That is what voters said, is that there should be a constitutional right to an abortion in Kentucky. That's what we supported. And what does that mean to the GOP? It means absolutely nothing, right? They're going to ignore the will of the voters because they don't agree. And they can't, right? Unfortunately, they can't ignore us because the Supreme Court, where the heck are they right now in this really important issue? So I don't know. It's just disheartening to see, the hard-heartedness of lawmakers on this issue. Put aside your pro-choice, pro-life, whatever, just the real implications and the real-world impacts of horribly designed policy. You'd think there'd be a little bit of compassion, and there just seems to be nothing. I don't know, Doug?
I'm going to go back, not exactly what I said last week, but I do want to note that during this past election, almost 3 million registered voters did not vote. I think therein lies the problem. If people will vote, if the 71% of the people who said I forget how that constitutional amendment, how it went down, but it went down like the abortion issue, like Aaron said, and 71% of the people support trans issues, but the lawmakers made medical decisions there with SB 150 in the same manner that they make medical decisions for women who are bearing a child. Those 3 million people need to vote. And if those people vote, then perhaps things can change. But until that happens, until we the people get out and vote, we're not going to have change. We just have to work harder to get more people out to vote. How about you, Nate?
Well, I I think I pretty much said it all right there. I mean, I don't. As far as the voting thing's concerned, yeah. I mean, I'll channel a little bit of Kimberly just to a little counterpoint here. She said last week that it's really on us. The people who are sort of activists, if you will, and organizers and people who are trying to have an influence. It's on us to get everyone else to vote. Yes, there's personal responsibility, and they got to get out and vote too. But they're not going to do it on their own. So we do need to put in work, and a lot of us are knocking doors and all that good stuff. And we have a candidate come for public office coming up soon that I'm sure could use some door knocking as well. But it's that kind of stuff that I think is going to make a difference. So.
Yeah, 100%. That's totally right. It is. I am likewise, Doug, confounded and concerned and astounded that not more people do show up. But I also do know that, yeah, man, politics is kind of, no one's excited. Very few people are excited about politics. People are kind of living their lives, and barely getting by. And the idea that you're going to care enough to figure out which of these, most people are kind of pots on both houses, right? They don't see a difference. They just see politics as not being very useful to them. And we got a lot of work to do to kind of point out okay, no, really though, here's what, if you put this GOP supermajority in charge in Frankfurt, here's what they've done. And here's the alternative. And I think people can be motivated by that, but it is going to take a lot of time and a lot of energy and a lot of strategic engagement. I don't know, Doug?
Yeah, and I think Progress Kentucky is going to be working on that with many others, including organizations involved with the Commonwealth Alliance for Voter Engagement. So if you want to join us, you can get in contact with us, send us a message. We'll be happy to keep you informed on what is going on, because we're going to be personally doing a lot of door knocking, texting and calling and messaging and that kind of thing, because as we all know, the more people vote, the more you have the opportunity to be involved and help make change.
Yes, we're not going to just yell at you for not voting. We're going to encourage you and inspire you and give you the information you need. But yes, this has all been a great teaser for our call to action that is coming your way soon, but not before our next item, which is the most exciting part of the show today. Nothing against Doug and Nate's awesome reading of those important news stories, but Kim Reeder, who is your Democratic candidate for Kentucky Auditor, is joining us, and we're really excited that she's taken some time to chat with us about the Kentucky Auditor and what it is and why she wants to do it. And Kim, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me. Oh
no, we're so thrilled. Thank you for running for Kentucky Auditor. So you didn't have if people are not hearing, people are not the folks that Doug just yelled at that didn't go out and vote. People showed up. They did not see your name on the ballot, though, right?
That's
why?
right.
Why didn't they see your name?
Well, because I was unopposed in the Democratic primary, and so that means that everyone could have shown up and voted just for me, and that would have inflated my ego and made me feel good. But I didn't have an opponent, so I go straight to the general election.
Gotcha. So yes, you're campaigning for auditor. As I mentioned, I'm not 100% sure what an auditor does. I mean, I know kind of, right, because I've worked in some nonprofits and we've had to have an audit every year, somebody to look at our books and make sure everything's on the up and up. So, but you would do that for the entire state?
Right. So one thing I think that it's really important to start with as far as the auditor role is just what the actual title is. And the title is Auditor of Public Accounts. So many times when I tell people that I'm running for auditor, they say, no, don't audit me. You won't audit me, will you? And my response is, well, no, this is just for public resources, right? So this is just for state and local government entities. So it's public monies. And then beyond that, what the auditor does, the auditor is an independent and disinterested party, and those are words that are actually used in the statute. So we want someone who's independent and disinterested to really be looking at financial transactions and determining if money's going where it's supposed to, and are people following the rules. That's really the simplest description I can come up with. And there are a lot of metaphors that are used for what the auditor does. What I think of it as is shining a light, that the auditor shines a light so that the people can see how their tax dollars are being used. So the people can see that transparency, right? But the people can see, are their tax dollars being wasted? Are their tax dollars being misused? And of course, we know that when we're able to eliminate waste and when we're able to eliminate abuse, then we have more resources that we can direct towards things that are important to Kentucky families, like public education, for example.
That's important. I like
Yes.
that. That all makes a lot of sense to me. So why are you the person for this job? Like, what's like Kim Reeder? You just explained the position to me better than I've ever had it explained to me. So that seems, you check that box. You understand the role really well, which is awesome. So why do you have qualifications?
Yeah. Well, to tell you why I would do a good job, I'll use a description that some of my students used when they nominated me for a Teacher of the Month award. And what they said was that I was the most caring and hardworking teacher they'd ever had. And that both of those are true. I care very much. I'm a person who raises my hand to help when I can. That was something I learned from my mother when I was growing up in Rowan County. My qualifications also are hard to beat, I think. After I graduated from Rowan County Senior High School, I earned my undergraduate degree at Yale, and then went on to get graduate degrees at Duke and University of North Carolina Law School. I had a successful tax practice. In 2011, I was named one of the top 10 tax lawyers in the country by an industry publication. But all of that professional success didn't seem quite as important to me when my mother became ill with dementia. And so my daughter and I moved back to Moorhead in 2014. And at that point, after my mother died, today's my mother's birthday, by the way. She would have been 74 years old today. When after she died, my daughter and I had to decide what we were going to do. And we decided to stay in Moorhead because Kentucky is our home. And I raised my hand to start teaching. I taught communications. I've taught math. I've taught government in the Governor's Scholars Program. Doug Price and I have a point of a connection point there. But if you look at those skills, communications and math and civics, right? Those are all subjects even that are important for the auditor. And I guess aside from those qualifications, I also just have a curiosity. I think a disposition that makes me uniquely suited to undertake projects where one is looking for the truth, essentially, where one is looking to see whether we're doing what we're supposed to do, whether we're, and we as people in leadership roles are whether those people are holding up their end of the bargain and taking care of Kentuckians the way they should be.
Oh, absolutely. That's fantastic. And I'm sorry about your mom. Also, happy birthday to mom.
Yeah,
And I'm sure she's looking down and incredibly proud of what you're doing for the home state there. I did want to turn to my co-host, so I'm sure I have some questions that they would like to ask as well.
Of course.
Yeah, I'll jump in. First of all, welcome to the show, Kim. We're so glad to have you here. So this is a little bit of an oddball question, but I think it's going to become more important as time goes on. So we're sort of dawning in the age of widespread use of artificial intelligence tools used to, analyze data and automate manual processes. And I'm wondering if you have considered how AI tools might help the job of the state's top auditor and what you do.
Well, I think as far as artificial intelligence generally, I think that, anytime we have advances in technology, right, great responsibility comes with, I guess, access to the power of something like artificial intelligence. So I think that the threshold issue, which I think we all have to be thinking about with artificial intelligence generally, is, our using good judgment as far as how it's implemented. That's not to say that artificial intelligence maybe couldn't at some point surpass human judgment, but for now we know that human judgment, when exercised reasonably, can yield good results. So I think we just have to take a measured approach as far as even thinking about AI generally. With regard to the auditor's office, I think that it would be, with performance performance reviews. I don't know. I think about it as a lawyer. Does AI perhaps get to an answer that's, I don't know. I've read letters drafted, that would have been legal responses to certain questions, and does it look 75% correct? Sure, but I think I would always, maybe it's my age, but I would be very inclined to to have lots of oversight of any artificial intelligence. Maybe my daughter, who is a different generation, would disagree.
Love it. Thank you.
Curveball from Nate. Thank you, Nate. I know that Doug has a bit of a pet issue that he feels very passionate about. That I think is a good one too. So, Doug, what have you got?
Sure. For several years, I have tried to get the treasurer and the auditor together to talk about reform related to the Kentucky Unclaimed Property Fund. Mm-hmm. And I hope tonight you will pledge that you will work toward this goal. And I can give you I will send you additional information separate from this, but it's an area that I have worked on just individually for several years. And I think there can be a lot of improvement, but I can't seem to get the two of those, one of who is running for this position, together.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess I would start with the proposition that whether in my legal practice or in teaching, it has rarely been my experience that cooperation doesn't yield a better result than conflict. Right? Working together, we can usually get to a better answer. So insofar as the treasurer and the auditor working together, I think that in my experience that could yield a positive result. So with regard to unclaimed property, just so people have an idea of what we're talking about, a very simple example of unclaimed property is, if Doug has Doug's fishing lures shop, right? I don't know. And someone gives me a gift certificate to Doug's fishing lure shop. And it's a $10 gift certificate, and I'm so excited to receive it, but I just never get around to fishing because I'm working so much auditing. And so I finally, maybe the gift certificate has an expiration date, or maybe I just lose it, and so I never redeem it. So the issue becomes that the person who bought the gift certificate has given Doug $10, and now I have not received the benefit of the gift certificate. So what happens to that gift certificate? And the theory is that is kind of held on account by the state, and in Kentucky that would be the treasurer's office, and then there is a provision to the extent that the treasurer is holding that's property, right? It's unclaimed property, and to the extent that the treasurer is holding that property in the state's custody on behalf of me with regard to the gift certificate, right? Because I can now, theoretically, I could go claim my gift certificate and get that, or actually, it would be probably the person who bought it who would be able to get that $10, right? So we could, I don't know explicitly the issue, Doug, but if things that come to mind where there could be efficiencies to look for, where one could evaluate the performance with regard to unclaimed property. It's often the case, and I believe is the case in Kentucky, that there are contract audit firms that can be used to audit companies with regard to unclaimed property, and so and that's really just, one could think of it as a privatization of a function, right? That happens a lot in state agencies, and so one thing that the auditor could be doing would be evaluating the efficiency of those arrangements and whether they're effective. That's one thought. If we think of unclaimed property rules at their heart as consumer protection rules, right? Because what we're saying is, hey, Doug, you don't get to keep the $10. You have to, you can't put that in your own pocket, right? So I think if we think of unclaimed property that way, we can think of the public purpose, that making sure unclaimed property rules are being followed, or that they're operating efficiently, that benefits consumers. I don't know if that gets to your question, Doug.
No, that's a very good explanation of the process. I think my biggest concern is the fact that we've got 120 counties, and if you do a search on all 120 counties, which I have done, you'll find that probably 100 of the county governments have unclaimed property. And the state auditor audits county governments, and that should be a line item on those audits. You have unclaimed property you haven't claimed, because it's money. Like the Martin County Water District has unclaimed property, and they have trouble staying afloat. There's no reason why that should be there. And I just think the auditor, working with the treasurer, can help to address those kind of things. Plus, there is a small matter of, on the books, the unclaimed property fund shows it's $130 million, when in actuality, the amount that is owed is $800 million. So state government has spent $670 million of that unclaimed property fund. So.
Well, that sounds like something that, as your auditor, I could investigate. As I said, I I am someone who is curious and interested, and I focus. I like to focus on details. I'm interested in focusing on details, as I like to make a bad joke about sometimes, because after all, I am a reader.
Oh, thank you. It's been nice. All right.
All right. So, Kim, thanks again for joining us. Thanks for throwing your hat in the ring for this very important role, and thank you for describing it to me so well. And then, if people are fired up like you, want to make sure that we've got a responsible individual in the office who's independent, who's working hard to defend and care for the Commonwealth's resources, how can they help?
Well, they can find out more information about our campaign at www.kimforkentucky, all spelled out, KIMFOR, and all of Kentucky spelled out.com. And we have more information about the campaign, and you can find us on social media as well, and follow us, and we'll be making sure that we're traveling around. We're hoping to do a lot of traveling around this summer and talking to folks all over Kentucky and getting people excited about this role, because it is, I know maybe it doesn't sound exciting, right? But this is what, to go to your point you were making earlier about how do we engage? How do we get people to the polls? It's understanding the importance. This is a really important job, and so I want to talk to as many people as I can about why this is important and why I would be committed to serving in a very hardworking and transparent way.
That's awesome. Well, Kim, thank you so much for joining us. Any final thoughts you want to share? Anything about either the role or the campaign? Do you have any events you've got coming up that you want to plug?
Well, we do. We are having our campaign kickoff in Moorhead on the 31st of May. We're very excited that a couple of the other down ballot folks, Michael Bowman and Pamela Stevenson, are going to be joining us, and I'm going to be talking and maybe telling more bad jokes. Man, I don't know, but trying to get people very excited about everything that we have going on with the campaign, and that will be in Moorhead at the Haldeman Community Center on May 31st at 5:30.
Awesome. That sounds perfect. Great. So if you're in the Moorhead area, come see Kim in person, and other favorite friends of the show, Representative Colonel Pam, Michael Bowman, like great crew, great slate, working hard to get your vote. So, all right. Appreciate this very much, Kim, and good luck on the campaign trail.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right. So now moving on. We got our call to action. All right, so this one is personal. This one is a new kind of new phase of our campaign that I want to spend just a little bit of time walking through. Right. So we just talked about the position of auditor and how important it is. The literally just millions and millions of dollars that are at stake in our state government, and this is the role to make sure that these public accounts are managed well, and we've got a great candidate. That's awesome. We also talked about gun safety and how the GOP supermajority aren't going to do a damn thing about it. We talked about abortion, how the Kentucky GOP supermajority is not going to do anything to make it safer for women and folks who are pregnant to have all the kind of healthcare options that they should be afforded. Right, forced to have dead babies. That's what we got here in Kentucky. They're not going to do anything about it. Right. So this call to action is, I think, a way to kind of address all these things, right? So we know right now the re-elect is underway, and we are going to go all in to beat the liar Dan Cameron, give Kentucky 4 more years of common sense and compassionate leadership from Andy Beshear. We want you to help us decide what that looks like, right? Help us determine what messages we want to focus on, what voter registration, persuasion, and turnout efforts we should tackle. if we want Andy to win, it's going to take a significant commitment of time, smart tactics, well-targeted organizing, right? Going after the right voters, the key voters, the difference-making voters. Progress Kentucky wants to reelect Andy and support our friends Colonel Pam and Sierra Enlow and Kim Reeder, but we also want to build long-term power to turn Kentucky purple, then blue. I have worked on political campaigns in the past, as I'm sure I've mentioned. Amy McGrath's campaign in 2018 for the 6th district, the governor's 2019 election. The thing about those races, they end, right? So whether it's a year or 2 years of like very intense work, 6 months of critically hard work, 2 weekends of insanely hard work, and then where does it go, right? Where does that go? It doesn't really go anywhere. It just dissipates. So we need to both re-elect Governor Beshear, we need to beat the liar Dan Cameron, and we need to build long-term power, right? Kentucky will not turn blue or even purple in a single cycle. So when you jump in with Progress Kentucky, we are going to be in this for the long haul. We're going to be back in a year. We're going to be back in 2 years. We're going to keep building that power in these areas that are really important. We want to see change in our Commonwealth. We've got to build political capital and political interest in creating that change. And that doesn't just happen in one election, right? It doesn't happen with one campaign. It happens over time. So if you want to have input on those messages that we're sharing, the tactics that we're using to commit to building power for the long term, you should help us out. We're going to be having a campaign kickoff meeting in the next few months. We have a survey that we're just launching right now. You can fill out that survey. Let us know what message you think are important to beat Dan Cameron, to support Andy Beshear, what kind of tactics you're excited to work on. But fill out the survey. Let us know you'd like to help out. And we'll let you know about the meeting and other ways of getting involved. So that it's being shared right now. A bit.ly link, 4 more years Kentucky. And I hope, this is not the first time not the last time we're going to talk about it. This is the first time we're announcing it right now. But we are all in. We need you to be all in with us if we want to build that long-term power and really reshape our state. So that's what I've got for you. I hope you'll check it out. If you got questions, feel free to DM me or the Progress Kentucky. We can let you know. But the forum and the survey is a great way to get started. All right, Nate, I think you're going to close this out.
I am indeed. Well, me and my cat Zola here. Progress Kentucky is a nonprofit organization registered with the Kentucky Secretary of State and organized as a 501c4. We are affiliated with the Indivisible Project, the Commonwealth Alliance Voter Engagement, that's CAVE, and are also proud members of the Forward Kentucky Network. Yay! Progress Kentucky's goal is to educate, organize, increase voter turnout, and advance a progressive agenda through civic engagement. Please be sure to come back and join us next week, May 31st, when we will be joined by another great guest, and we will also continue to invite great candidates like Kim Reeder tonight. Production of this episode 114, this evening was by Annabelle Nagel. Yay, Annabelle. Thank you, Nate. That's me. For the theme songs, you can find more information and music at natosongs.com, natosongs.com. And if you miss our weekly live stream or lively week stream on Facebook, don't worry. You can rewatch shows and see our source links on Facebook, or audio podcasts are available on Apple, Google, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts. Logo and some graphic content provided by Couchfire Media. More information can be found at couchfiremedia.com. That's it for us. Y'all have a great week and take care of yourselves.